Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
2023. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So we're the Vanguardian Voices. I'm Gabriela Flores, the editor-in-chief of the Vanguard newspaper.
And I'm Michela Arlia, the managing editor. And we are back from a little break with finals and all of that fun stuff.
Fun stuff.
And we're back on the radio.
A little nerve-wracking at least for me. But anyway, exciting time. So we're here now for the winter. We're not printing at all. We're not publishing any stories, but we wanted to continue spreading some of the news that we've caught, and that's on our radar. So for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be recapping news from New York City and Brooklyn. And today we have a special guest with us, Mr. John Schilling.
Hello.
Hi, John.
How you guys doing?
I guess we're good. I don't know.
I'm doing great.
Oh, that's great. All right. So for those who don't know, John Schilling was the former managing editor of the Vanguard newspaper, and now he's coming back as a BC alum, and he's also attending CUNY journalism school. So
I got really nervous for a second. You're like, he's coming back. I'm like, I am? What am I doing? But you meant as an alum. I got you.
Yeah.
Can't get rid of me.
Legit.
The thought scares you sometimes?
A little bit.
Trauma. Well, anyway. So, John, would you like to give us a little formal introduction?
Sure. So, hi, everybody. My name is John Schilling. I just graduated from Brooklyn College in May 2022. I was a journalism and media studies major. I'm currently at the CUNY J School, the CUNY Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism. And, I've just been very busy recently writing, working with Ryan Schwach. Shout out to Ryan Schwach at The Wave, one of the founders of the Vanguard and their first managing editor and eventual editor-in-chief. So I can't escape Brooklyn College if I try, you know.
Yeah.
I'm always running into it.
And listeners, just for a visual, John is wearing the Brooklyn College sweater.
Yes.
So really can't get it anywhere.
He loves it here
without
that
Brooklyn
much.
College. Yeah. So just to give a little bit background of the Vanguard. So the Vanguard was originally a newspaper that shut down in 1950. Back then, the Brooklyn College president didn't like the content that was being published by the editors. And long story short, they got shut down, and the whole excuse was like, oh, the editors are kind of like communists, or the Red Scare at the time. So fun times for the Red Scare, I guess. But no, it wasn't fun. It was not fun. But long story short, the editors a few years later created their own student publication that they ran, that they collected funds for. And though it was pretty short-lived, it's very it speaks volumes about what kind of quality of journalism they wanted to publish, and they wanted to publish the truth. So it was really cool. Vanguard spelled backwards, short-lived. But then years later, in 2019, that's when the Vanguard revamped. So that's a little history now, and 3 years later, we're still standing. And,
4 years.
4 years.
4 years.
We're writers. We don't do math.
We don't. We lack stem cells.
That hasn't changed.
The burnout from the writing
Yes.
definitely makes numbers hard.
Sure. We can use that as an excuse. So we are looking for writers.
Yes, we are. So if you are interested in writing, even if you don't think you're a writer by trade, please come and reach out to us either on our social media or our email, or even just stopping by the office. Come spring semester, we would love to have more people on our staff and show you the ropes if you think writing is something that could be an interesting path for you.
Yeah, and if you like reporting, investigating, going deep into different issues that you find important in Brooklyn College or in New York City, definitely shoot us an email. We're always on standby. So, without further ado, we're going to be recapping the latest news from Brooklyn and New York City. So the first up is on strike. Over 7,000 New York City nurses go on strike for better wages, working conditions, and other demands. So, I don't know. This was something long time coming, I guess, it seems. So yesterday, a bunch of nurses went on strike. So the New York State Nurses Association had a talk with hospital administrators from Mount Sinai Medical Care and Montefiore Medical Center. And they couldn't come up with negotiations. From what I read, that they were, up until 1 a.m. In the early morning of Monday. And they couldn't come up with anything that they could compromise on. So the nurses went on strike the following morning, and they were protesting and they were demanding for better wages to keep up with inflation, more nurses to deal with the triple-demic, which is RSV, or respiratory syncytial virus. You know what? Again, stem cells lagging here. But anyway, the flu and COVID-19. So they wanted better patient-to-nurse ratios, and that was some of the demands. And the union that launched this all represents over 42,000 nurses in the state, and they're still willing to negotiate. So in the meantime, when all of this was happening, doctors were taking on more of the roles that nurses had, and there was also temporary staff that was brought into these two hospitals. But yeah, it was a pretty big turnout. A lot of people, I know some people from PSC CUNY also went in to support. So, interesting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it does connect back to, since we are a Brooklyn College CUNY newspaper, let's connect it back. It does connect back to us because, Hunter College just recently announced donations to start up a new nursing program, and I think there's one at Lehman College as well. So, seeing how that might trickle down and affect the students in the system should be interesting if they don't come to terms with their contract soon.
Yep.
Yeah, and so moving on to some other New York City related news. So New York City and other states around the country have been pleading for federal help to provide migrants with asylum. Our mayor, Eric Adams, and the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, has asked the governor of Colorado to stop busing migrants to their respective cities. There has been kind of an overload in the cities on migrants seeking asylum over the border down in Texas, and New York City has just recently received 36,400 asylum seekers in the 9 months leading up to January 4th, which is the most recent report. And they do plan, as a city, to spend $1 billion this coming year to address this crisis. So Chicago, on the other hand, has received 3,854 migrants since late August, according to press releases. And leaders from all three of these states are now asking Congress and the Biden-Harris administration to step up with their federal support. At this time, though, there are no more buses scheduled to enter New York City and Chicago, with the last bus having been come in today. And this comes at a pretty oddly timed event as President Biden visited the border in Texas this past week for the first time during his presidency.
Cool. Pet stores are banned from selling cats, dogs, and rabbits. This is actually a story that I covered for The Wave, as they laugh at me because I'm getting back into the stretch of things. Anyway, so for those who don't know, Governor Kathy Hochul signed into law recently that every pet store in the state of New York, I believe they're the sixth state to do it, they can no longer sell dogs, cats, or rabbits, which is weird for me because growing up, I feel like every pet store I went to, I would always try to beg my mom to buy me a dog. But my brother's afraid of dogs, so that's always been a family conflict.
Same.
Really? Really, really?
Yes.
Oh, well. Now, breeders are prohibited from selling more than 9 dogs per year, and the new law is not taking effect for a while, December 2024. To give pet store owners a little bit of time to sort of adjust their businesses because a fair chunk of their profits come from selling these animals, so they're going to have to pivot. And, pet store owners, understandably, in New York are saying this does nothing for the puppy mill to pet store pipeline, which is what the law, in theory is designed to crack down on the puppy mills, and does not consider the at-home breeders since this law is only specific to pet shops and facilities that breed pets. For the Wave in particular, which covers Rockaway, I'll just mention really quick because I worked on the story. There's 2 pet stores in Rockaway that sells dogs, and when I tried to interview them, they really didn't have much information to give me because I feel like this new law is kind of a shockwave, and they kind of don't know how they're gonna survive this because like I said before, a lot of their profits come from selling these animals, but remains to be seen.
Yeah, I know. From what I was reading, California implemented something similar. And it's just interesting. So I guess we'll see. hopefully it works out. But anyway, in other news, 3 robbers make bank by robbing Chase Bank. I don't know why I said it that way. It's not exciting news. But it is quite funny, in my humble opinion. Maybe not that funny. But last Friday, 3 men in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, stole $300,000 from an armored truck that was making a cash drop to Chase. 2 of the men asked the driver for directions as a distraction, while the third one swiped a bag full of money from the bumper. And the suspects are still on the loose as of airtime.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of things with banks going on right now. It's interesting.
It is.
In sports news, I said that like I can actually report the sports coherently, but we'll try. Brooklyn Nets Kevin Durant is injured. Fan Nation has reported that the Brooklyn Nets superstar Kevin Durant left Sunday night's game after a collision with Miami Heat star Jimmy Butler. The Nets confirmed that Durant suffered a right knee injury and would be out for the remainder of the game. Durant reached for his knee immediately after Butler fell onto his lower leg, and the Nets released an update shortly after Durant went into the locker room that then confirmed it was a knee injury for the star forward. Durant attempted to play the next possession, but then was asked to be replaced. Updates are still developing on Durant's injury, and hopefully it's a quick recovery.
Yeah. Oh, and just to slide this in other sports-related injury news, the Bills' Damar Hamlin was released from Cincinnati Hospital after having a cardiac arrest on field. So hopefully it's a swifty recovery. Well, we see a little applause from a member of the Get Back, Mr. Luis Flecha. All right.
Suspect of NYC truck attack in 2017 set for trial. ABC News has reported that the first federal death penalty trial of the Biden administration opened yesterday in New York City, where Sayfullo Saipov is charged with the 2017 killings of 8 people when he allegedly plowed a rental truck into pedestrians and cyclists along the West Side Highway. Oh, good Lord. The truck attack, which was on Halloween, was the deadliest terror attack in New York since September 11, 2001. The rental truck used for the attack had an ISIS flag, and prosecutors say Saipov was inspired by ISIS content he watched. I actually did not hear about this at all.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Like on that day. That was really scary.
Yeah, so in other news, sorry. There's always these quirky moments in between, so apologies. But anyway, so Virgil Abloh exhibit is closing soon. So the Virgil Abloh exhibit was in Brooklyn Museum, which is a few stops away from Brooklyn College. So following the death of the designer and Off-White founder Virgil Abloh, the Brooklyn Museum opened up this exhibit titled Figures of Speech, and it showcases 2 decades of his practice, including collaborations, items from Off-White and Louis Vuitton, where he was a head designer for there, and so much other pieces there. The exhibit is closing on January 29.
All right, and that is most of the biggest headlines lately in New York City that we've covered. I mean, I guess you can say it's stuff that we would potentially have covered if we were printing in some shape or form. But that is that, and we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to have our Allison Dubrow talk about some news ripped from the headline style and do a little more chatting with John.
Stick around. I'm a mess.
Making you guys break.
All right, we are back. Hello, everyone, again.
Hello.
So we just quickly wanted to highlight some news within the Brooklyn College community. It is a little bit slow lately because of the January break, but there is something pretty exciting that came about just as the fall semester closed, which is the West End building looks a little bit different. There is now an upgrade to the second floor of the West End building where a long-standing effort between the art department and senior vice president Alan Gilbert completed a mural, calling it a major artistic facelift. So this is the result of a new experimental art course on campus where the mural itself was painted by 13 Brooklyn College students with their professor, which is a professional muralist, adjunct professor, and alumni, Julia Kaziza, who graduated in the MFA program in 2011. Also assisting with the mural completion was artist Derek Adams, who served as a supporter and advisor. And this project is actually pretty cool because it's launching an art course entitled Art 3414, which will be offered fall 2023, which is just strictly mural painting from what I saw, which is pretty cool that the art department's expanding.
That's really fun. Beautifying campus even more.
Nice.
Yeah. And now, for our exciting segment of the hour, we're going to be rambling a little bit with John, our former managing editor and now an up-and-coming journalist out in the field.
Hopefully. We'll see.
Yeah. No. All right. Anyway, so John, we did want to ask you a few questions. So how did you get involved in the paper?
Yeah, so I got involved with the Vanguard, it was the fall of 2019. I sent an email to Kiara Vasquez at the time, who was the editor-in-chief, just out of nowhere. Like, I wanted to get involved. I'd put it off that was my first semester of my sophomore year. I'd put it off my freshman year. And she, immediately replied to me and was like, oh, stop by the office after class and we'll talk. And I stopped by there, and she immediately threw 3 assignments at me to do, and I was, intimidated, and I was like, I made a mistake. I had enough work at the time, at least that's the way that I saw it, and I was like, I don't need more work to do, and, I'm kind of a people pleaser, so I was afraid to say no. So, I went to an event that nobody else wanted to do. It was late at night here on the campus. It was a film screening for Bernie Sanders' brother, Larry Sanders. They were sort of, advertising it like, oh, this is the premiere about a documentary about his life. And he's an alum of Brooklyn College. So I went to that, talked to the filmmakers, and that's sort of how I got used to reporting. Because up until that point, all the articles that I had written for high school and stuff was just reviews and opinion pieces and stuff like that, and no real actual interviewing or reporting. So I got into it right away, continued working throughout that semester, the following semester. Then Ryan Schwach, the managing editor, he was becoming editor-in-chief, and he asked me to be arts editor. I wanted to be features editor, but he gave that to Gabby instead. I did not want to be arts editor, but it worked out. And so my whole junior year was arts editor, senior year managing editor. And Michela has sort of, I guess, taken every job that I've abandoned.
I was just going to say, you threw everything to me, so.
But you know what? I don't know if Gabby ever told you this. It was my idea to hire you as managing editor. That was
Thank
100% my idea.
Thanks.
John,
putting her on the spot right now.
You lie.
Do you deny? No, that's not a lie.
You know what? I have very terrible memory, so it could. I don't know.
Well, I've got great
the
memory.
circumstances.
So who are we gonna trust? Me.
You know what?
All right, I'm not taking a side here.
Thank you, Michela.
Thanks to whoever's idea it was.
Ours.
You're welcome.
Oh wow.
But
John,
I mean, it does make sense. John did throw me all of his jobs.
Legit. I don't know if it was for event data. Chris, he's like.
Well, would you have rather been sports editor, Michela?
Did you see me?
We needed a sports editor.
Did you just hear me covering that one sports thing 5 minutes ago? Could
Yeah.
I have been a better sports editor?
There's another timeline somewhere where Michela's sports editor and Owen Russell is our arts editor, and I would love to see that.
Oh my gosh,
I want to see that.
that would be fun. Honest to God.
Mm-hmm.
Michela, I think you could do sports. You got that. I don't know.
I could do sports because you throw the piece on me.
Yes.
The
I'm
night
sorry
before.
about that. Sometimes, yeah. Anyway, sometimes, we got to be a little versatile. We got to,
Mm-hmm.
dip our toes into things we do not know. But
Yep.
anyway, interesting stuff. I don't know what that expression was, John, but okay. So, where do you originally hail from?
Where are you from?
Where are you from? pretty much.
I mean, yeah, it's weird because you know the answer. But, yeah, I'm from Rockaway Beach, Queens. Lived there my whole life. And, came to Brooklyn College in the fall of 2018. And like I said before, you can't get rid of me. I feel like I'm always coming back here, you know. And my brother is actually going to come here in the fall.
And you're actually a legacy BC.
Yeah, and my father graduated from here years ago. Yeah.
Nice.
So keeping it in the family, Brooklyn College. All right.
Shout out to legacies. I'm a legacy.
Oh,
At
you're a
Brooklyn
legacy
College,
as
yep.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Who?
My mom.
Oh, your mom?
Yeah.
Shout out to your mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hey. Anyway, so what has been your favorite part about being in the Vanguard? I know you've been in the Vanguard since your sophomore year.
Yeah. So favorite part, it's weird because if you ask me what my favorite part of Brooklyn College was, I would just say the Vanguard. You know what I mean? It's hard to boil down one moment in the Vanguard. I would say I met a lot of cool people, obviously. I, wrote some fun stories and got a lot of experience through that. I mean, I don't think I'd be where I am right now in the position that I'm in, you know, at the CUNY J School and writing for The Wave in Rockaway, if I hadn't had that experience from the Vanguard. And I know that there's a lot of actual journalism and media studies majors each semester that graduate and they did not write for the Vanguard or any of the, you know, campus publications. And it's like, why? You know, it's good experience and it's good to, you know, for applying to internships and a resume. So I know that's always confused me, but I'm glad that I did. I have no regrets.
Yeah.
And some not so great things about your time at the Vanguard. Tread lightly.
Oh, okay. Well, tread lightly. It's a bit of a tall order. All right.
Wow. Fuck.
Okay. Look, I don't miss the that urge that I had every Tuesday. I know you guys print on like a different schedule now. I think Gabby was telling me, but when I was here, it was on Tuesdays, and it was like that urge to step in to do somebody's job when they didn't do it. You know what I mean? That I don't miss. That was very stressful. It's very hard for me because on one hand, I'm like, they're getting paid to do that job. I have to give them the opportunity to do it even though it's late. But the other hand, I'm like, I want to go to bed. So like, if I have to get photos, if I have to do something, if I have to, you know, I would just do it. And that's tough because it was really hard for me to just sit back because I want to go to bed and I'm tired, you know? So I don't miss that. I don't miss the stress that came with that.
That is true. Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of cool. I guess, like, now that I'm experiencing it with Michela and then John, I just see it now, like, remembering Kiara, who was the first editor-in-chief, and Ryan, who was the managing editor. It's like seeing how much they had to deal with is interesting, you know? So I'm glad that I did it both, you know, and doing it still with Michela, all this madness. Amazing madness, nonetheless. But, yeah.
Who's better? Said who's better?
Oh my gosh.
I'm kidding. Well,
Michaela.
since you two decided to go at it about who hired me.
That was John. So John, I guess.
What was my idea? I was gone. You know, she could have said, you know, no, John, I'm going to hire somebody else.
Yes. Imagine just to push his buttons. I always love pushing John's buttons, but I was like, you know what? Got a good point. I honestly don't remember that conversation, but I'm taking John's word for it. But anyway, so how about your reporting at The Wave? So when did you start at The Wave?
So if you're a journalism and media studies major, you might know that you have to do an internship as a part of your major. And I knew that I had to do one. And it was a little tough because it was, you know, during COVID, classes were still online. We were a year into the pandemic at that point, but I was trying to think of, you know, an internship and, you know, jobs at the time. Internships were very, you know, scarce. So The Wave is a local paper in Rockaway that I've been reading since I was little because I've lived there. And Ryan was actually freelancing for them at the time. He's now one of their editors, but he was freelancing for them, and he was talking to the editor at the time and was saying, like, you know, there's this guy that I know from school, and, you know, he's looking for an internship. But before that had even happened, the editor had actually seen me on LinkedIn and actually mentioned my name to one of the other editors mentioned the name to Ryan. He was like, oh, yeah, I was just talking to Ray, that's the editor, about John. And they reached out to me, The Wave. So I did an internship there that summer. I got credit for Brooklyn College. And I've been freelancing ever since then. It was the summer of 2021. Yeah, and freelancing ever since then, and it's been cool.
Wow. Round of applause for John. Get it, John. They reached out to him. Exciting stuff. Anyway, So I guess I always was wondering, like, I think like for all of us as reporters, like there's a story that really does hit us, like we actually have to do so much work for, or it's just something that we kind of connect to. Has there been a story like that you've covered?
Yes, I don't know about the Vanguard, because I'll be honest with you, most of the articles I wrote for the Vanguard, especially when I became managing editor, it was more like opinion based and op-eds and reviews and stuff, and then covering like Zoom meetings and stuff. But with the Wave, we did an investigation into a housing complex in Rockaway where it's called Arvern by the Sea, and basically people that live there get a tax break as long as it's their primary address for most of the year. And a lot of people were living there, but they were getting their bills sent to all over the country. So like Hawaii, Texas, and that raised red flags. And I don't remember what the exact percentage was we came up with. I think it was 12%. It applied to 12% of residents. So it raised questions like these people are getting tax breaks, but they're not even living there full time. They just own the property and they're like subletting it, renting it out, which is against the rules. It's tax fraud. So that was a big story. We had to go through all these documents. And it took me like 48 hours straight. Like, I'm not even lying, like, to go through it. It was insane with no help from Ryan. No, I'm kidding. Ryan helped a little bit. But he lived there at the time. So it was a conflict. So that's why he gave it to me. And he doesn't live there anymore. He lives in another complex in Rockaway, and I'm currently working on a story about that complex and their drama too. So whenever Ryan wants to call out where he lives, but he doesn't want to get accused of like bias, he just throws it at me. So, that was an interesting story. I also, just really quick, I did another story too about, you might have heard that some of the marijuana dispensaries are opening up now in New York City. There's 2 of them in Rockaway, but they both opened before they were legally able to. But because Melinda Katz wasn't prosecuting, they sort of had like this freedom, this legal gray area. And, one of the dispensary owners loved the story when I wrote it. The other one did not, and accused me of misquoting him, which I was like, that's a sin of journalism. So I was nervous. I was like, first of all, I know for a fact I didn't, but let me ask him, what do you think I misquoted you on? And then he goes, oh, well, I told you not to take pictures, and I told you not to do this, and I told you not to do that. I was like, well, that's not misquoting. I mean, he goes, oh, I wanted to read the story before you put it out there. I was like, I never agreed to that. First of all, you should never agree to that because you're giving them all the power, although I did it a few times with the Vanguard, especially with the film department. So
shout out to the film department.
So that was an important lesson for me, though. I didn't learn that at Brooklyn College so much because I didn't have that experience. But not everybody that you write about is gonna like the story. They're not gonna like you. They're gonna. I was telling this to Ryan because he was obviously my editor now, and he was saying, this is an example. You didn't do anything wrong. This is an example of sources' remorse. They gave you the interview, and we had a really good conversation, me and this guy who owned the store. And then when he saw the story, he just didn't like it. So he regretted doing the interview, but that was his problem. So
yeah. And that's sometimes what we have to deal with. Some punches from the sources, figurative punches, not physical, hopefully. Yeah. But anyway, so where do you personally see yourself in 5 years?
Hoping to still be alive, but we'll see. I don't know. I really don't know. I hope that I'm maybe working for a news organization, newspaper. If not, I would love to teach. I taught over the summer. I taught 6th graders about journalism and creative writing, so I enjoyed doing that. I know a lot of people say, like, oh, this is what my parents used to say. They were like, oh, teachers, they don't really make a lot of money. I'm like, well, journalists don't make a lot of money either, so I'm kind of,
Teachers make more than journalists.
Yeah, it's true. So,
so
it's an okay backup. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. I've always said, because my professors have asked me, like, where do you see yourself? Like, where do you want to work? I'm like, I'll work wherever I can get hired. And I think it's a valid response. Everybody has sort of this, oh, I'll write about this, but I won't write about this. It's like, no, you're going to write whatever you can get hired. Remember Professor McSherry, Gabby, what he said? I forget what it was. He covered some sport that he had never covered before that he knew nothing about. I don't remember what it was.
And he interviewed Little Kim? And he didn't even know who Little Kim was?
Yeah, so he found an in and he just went with it. But if he had said, oh, I don't feel comfortable, I don't like writing about that, he wouldn't have gotten that job and he wouldn't have gotten as far as he did. So suck it up.
Honestly.
Wise words.
From John Schilling, 2023.
Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not.
Good. Okay, cool.
No, got to be thrown into things.
Because maybe I'm delusional.
No. Have to expand your comfort zone.
Occasionally delusional, but not in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, John, now that you're a BC alum, have you picked up any tricks or lessons from your time at BC?
Tread lightly.
It's it's the basic stuff. It's the writing, it's the interviewing, it's talking to people that you're just meeting. I mean, there's a lot of people at the CUNY J School who are just getting into journalism. They're there to figure out what journalism is and how to write effectively because they're going through a career change or, something like that, or they didn't major in journalism in undergrad, or they have no experience freelancing. But I have a lot of, experience from the Vanguard and the Wave, so a lot of that has come into play, and I'm grateful for that. I mean, the one thing that I didn't really learn much about at Brooklyn College because they didn't really have a course for it was video journalism. But I know that they now have a course, so that's good, taught by Victoria Manna, who's an alum. Or they just finished. I don't know if she'll be doing that again. But that was a big thing for me. I always wanted to go into video. So then I took one of the television classes. I got permission to do that and learned Adobe Premiere Pro. And that's a lot of people at the CUNY J School are just learning that and Pro Tools for the first time, it's really daunting if you're kind of just thrown into it. But luckily, I've had that experience from the radio production class and the television class. So it definitely came into play. It helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and just for a little extra anecdotes for the listeners here, do you still keep in touch with most of the people that you've met at the Vanguard?
Yeah, I mean, would you say that we keep in touch?
I guess.
Not at all.
I would say as of recently, not really, but usually you know what that means? It means that everything's going good, because usually when Gabby texts me, it's because the paper's on fire, right?
Not necessarily.
Or she thinks the paper's on fire.
Good specification. Yeah, she thinks the paper's on fire.
You know what, guys? I don't understand. I'm just realistic here.
You asked the question.
You know what? That's true, but now it's backfiring. Okay, so go on.
Yeah, no, I keep in touch with you guys. I mean, to some extent. I mean, is liking a post on Instagram keeping in touch?
These days, yeah.
Yeah, so we keep in touch. Matt Hirsch, Ryan Schwach. Kiara called me a few weeks ago out of the blue. She was interested in the CUNY J School and finding out more information about that. Anakin a little bit, Owen a little bit, because Owen wrote that article, the Baseball Hall of Fame ballot, which I did last year, so I appreciated that. And, we had a few disagreements. I agreed with it for the most part, for his Hall of Fame ballot, but I would have done it a little bit differently. But no, it was cool to get that little shout out.
Yeah. I guess, it's interesting because I realize that different little... I guess John's spirit is running through the Vanguard sometimes in different ways, whether it be the layout, the structure of our budget, which is where we have all the stories, or if it's how we organize now different stuff when it comes to when stories are being uploaded.
Yeah.
And now I guess the baseball ballot from Owen Russell. So yeah, it's interesting.
Can't get rid of me.
Legit, unfortunately. No, I'm kidding. Jokes. Anyway. So,
all right. Well, okay. Thanks, John.
Yep.
John will stick around for the rest of the episode.
You can't get rid of me.
We try. No, I'm kidding. Now we're gonna just transition a little bit to Allison. Oh, hello, Allison. Hello. And Allison's going to be doing her Ripped from the Headlines segment, and this time we're gonna have a little bit of a talk back about some of them.
Yes, we will. Well, we've been away for some time, and I know we were keeping everyone updated on the outcome of the World Cup. Well, as everyone knows, Argentina won, and now we wait for the next World Cup in 2026. And in other soccer news, Pelé was 82 years old when he passed away right before 2022 ended on December 29th. He died from multiple organ failure, which was the result of the progression of colon cancer. He won three World Cup tournaments with Brazil and had many other accomplishments on and off the soccer field, so many fans around the world mourned his death. And in addition to that sad news, we also lost Barbara Walters, who was 93 and died the day right after Pelé on December 30th. Walters broke many barriers for women pursuing journalism, as she was the first female co-host of The Today Show and the first female anchor of a network evening news program. She interviewed many famous people, such as Barbra Streisand, Michael Jackson, Princess Grace of Monaco. I mean, the list goes on. And she also interviewed every American president and first lady, from Richard and Pat Nixon to Barack and Michelle Obama. And she also interviewed former President Donald Trump and his wife Melania back when he was campaigning to become president. So, Walters had a very long career and definitely serves as an inspiration to women around the world, especially, I'd say, women to pursuing journalism. And in other news, after 5 days and 15 rounds of voting, House GOP members finally elected Kevin McCarthy as House Speaker. The House has not functioned like that since 1859, which was just 2 years before the Civil War, and it took the House 44 ballots to elect the Speaker. So it seems everyone is glad that this is figured out, but it does make one wonder, if the House had so much difficulty in voting for the Speaker, how will this impact and play out in the future when they have to vote on certain bills? Yesterday, the House did vote on a package that outlines how the lower chamber will work for the next 2 years. The package did pass, mainly because most of the concessions McCarthy made, he made them to win speakership. So now it will be easier to remove the Speaker and harder to spend federal money. And by doing so, Republicans are saying that this will increase transparency and limit spending. However, many critics are afraid that the rules could affect the national defense budget and undermine ethics standards. The House also voted to pass a bill to undo the $80 billion in funding to increase the staff of the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, which was included in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was a social spending bill passed by Democrats in the last Congress. So while the House did pass this, it now goes to the Senate, which is controlled by the Democrats, so it's unlikely to pass. And speaking of McCarthy getting elected as House Speaker, members of Congress were also sworn in, one of those members being the infamous George Santos. I think everyone by now has heard of this man, but in case you haven't, George Santos won the election in Long Island, but he has lied about where he worked, went to college, and even his religion. And yesterday, he was accused of breaking campaign finance laws. A formal complaint filed with the Federal Election Commission is questioning how Santos made a $700,000 contribution to his own campaign when he reported earning only about $50,000 a year. Santos is also wanted by Brazilian authorities. So I believe House Speaker has yet to comment on this. He doesn't want to, McCarthy, that is. And the Republicans are also afraid of losing him because they have such a small majority within the House. So do you guys think Santos should be punished for lying? I mean, he just got sworn in, and some people are saying that he should be allowed to finish his duties and stay there. And others are saying there should be repercussions.
Well, first off, did you see the pictures from all of the voting? How he was sitting on his own? It looked like the lunch tables in elementary school. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted to even look his way. I was like, wow, okay.
I also saw one, I think it was today or yesterday, of him sitting next to Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they were laughing about something. So
really?
Yeah, seems he's having a good time already.
Okay. I thought those photos were going to be like the first meme of the year from him sitting by himself.
Oh, gosh. Well, it seems a little funny. I mean, we all kind of lie on our resume. Not all of us. But
I'm not subscribing to that.
I do not. It's
no comment.
No comment on that. I'm not saying that I do. BT Dubs employers.
It's kind of what you just said.
What? No.
Stirring trouble, John.
Well, I think maybe the kind of lie you're talking about, Gabby, is different from what he's doing, right? He said he went to Baruch. There's no record of him going to Baruch. I think he also said he went to NYU at some point. No record of that. The high school he went to, he didn't even go there.
What I want to know is, how did he get this far with that lies? Why did no one double check him like months ago?
But also, why did voters vote for him? Right? Well, that's something that we should question. I think, like, hey, guys, so what's up? Why did you decide to vote for this man? What exactly?
Well, to add to that, a New York congressman, what's his name? I'm trying to find it. Richie Torres, he just put forward the Santos Act, which stands for Stop Another Non-Truthful Office Seeker. I mean, it makes sense, right? We shouldn't let these people who are lying, if they have to represent us, if we did that, we would be kicked out automatically. We'd lose our job or whatever it is, right? So why wouldn't we hold someone accountable if they're supposed to represent the people and they're completely lying? I mean, he said he was Jewish. He's not Jewish. I think he said his grandparents died in the Holocaust. I don't have that fact correct, but it said something like that. I also saw something that he said about having family members that died in 9/11. I mean, who lies about these things?
I mean, his name turned into an acronym.
Yeah.
Is he running for president in 2024?
I hope not.
Oh, goodness.
I mean, but this is really similar to Herschel Walker, too, who luckily, and from Georgia, wasn't voted in. But it's just interesting how, like, these people get so much support from voters, and they're lying consistently about their background, their resume, what they've actually accomplished. Just for what? And why are they, getting to that level of attention by voters is beyond me. So I don't know. IDK. America. Exciting.
And he won by such a narrow lead. I think maybe it was 8 points. Don't quote me on that. I have to double check, but I remember it being very small. Well, we can move on if you'd like. So more storms are hitting the West Coast, and so far there have been 15 deaths since December. Biden issued an emergency declaration. California is drowning, with many places within the state experiencing flooding, mudslides, high wind, and falling trees. And to put this in perspective, just in the past 11 days, Oakland, California has had more rain than it normally gets in the entire season. And yesterday, 35 million people in California were under flood advisories. And if I'm not mistaken, I also see on the New York Times headline 3 minutes ago, evacuations ordered in California as mudslide and flood risks grow. So I hope the people of California are doing better. Hope it doesn't destroy them too much. And this past Friday, a teacher in Newport News, Virginia, was shot by a 6-year-old. Officials say that the child put his mother's gun in his backpack before leaving for school. The teacher, a 25-year-old Abigail Zwerner, suffered a gunshot wound, but was also able to get all of her students out of the classroom. As for the child, nobody under 11 can be locked up in state custody, so the boy is at a medical facility for an evaluation, and ultimately what happens to him will be up to a judge. However, the mother legally purchased that handgun, so the investigation is still ongoing, and it is possible that the mother could face charges. Very sad news. Prince Harry, well, to move on, sorry, it's sad, but I don't want to seem like I'm happy about that. Prince Harry's new book, Spare, comes out today. A lot of people have been criticizing Harry and his wife Meghan, saying that they wanted a private life and stepped away from their royal duties for that purpose. But, now they came out with their Netflix series and Harry is coming out with his book. So a lot of people think that he's kind of doing this for attention. But this weekend on 60 Minutes, Anderson Cooper interviewed Prince Harry, and he mentioned how he feels obligated to tell his story and what is going on because he wants the truth out there, and it's been difficult for him to get the truth out there when he says that the British media publishes other narratives. And, a lot of people say, why haven't you been doing this privately? And he mentioned in the interview, like, he has tried doing it privately with his family, but then they come out with those stories that are against him and Meghan, and so it hasn't really been working out. And something that shocked me was he also said, like, he hasn't spoken to William in a while, or his father as well. So I don't think many people knew that the situation was that bad between the brothers. Or what do you guys think about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle airing, or, talking about their life now that they've stepped away from their royal duties?
Well, John, I wanted to see what you thought first.
Okay. I mean, I've never actually... my mom is obsessed with the royal family, mostly because of Princess Diana. I've never actually cared for them because they're in an entirely different country. But, I think it's cool that they sort of stepped away and that they're, kind of telling their side of things now and, the issues between William and Harry. I think I think a lot of people, there's like this blind loyalty to family. It's like, oh, well, at the end of the day, you're family. But I feel like if you guys make each other worse people, it's better to be apart. And I think, I actually can't tell them apart. So which one left? Harry left?
Yes.
Harry left. Okay. This is how much I care. Good for Harry. That's my short and simple response. Good for Harry.
Yeah. I mean, my mom also, as well, obsessed because of Diana. She thinks that they killed her. So that's interesting. But I think I've also, I guess because of my mom, I've grown interest in the royal family, and I started watching the Netflix series. And I mean, I've seen all the memes. I've seen what people commented, like especially on Meghan. I think overall, I do think it's a little bit strange how people would say, like, oh, we want privacy. And they did say that they wanted to fulfill some of their duties or whatever. But I also think it's very hypocritical because it seems like so easy to get that Netflix money nowadays, especially if you have some type of drama. So now like, I mean, there was probably different ways that they could have gone about it. But now, considering that amount of money and also now this new book, Spare, I'm just imagining how much profit they're probably getting from speaking their truth. And I put that in quotation marks. Of course, the royal family isn't perfect, but I think if you're profiting off of your own traumas, and I'm putting that in quotation marks, that's really questionable.
Do we think they need the money? They stepped away, and I don't know if
Well,
they're
they're not being funded anymore.
Yeah.
So you could argue that they do.
Go work at McDonald's, shoot.
Yeah, okay, Prince Harry and a McDonald's.
Collab with McDonald's, right?
Welcome to McDonald's.
Welcome to McDonald's. Mickey D's. Get a job.
McDonald's. You'd say McDonald's.
Well, I also think just them, like the interview that they did with Oprah, I think that was last year. Well, obviously last year, when 2023 now. But that interview with Oprah, I think a lot of people also learned from that. Like, I didn't know they call it the firm, or that they had people that they have to speak to before they get maybe to the queen, if I'm not mistaken, is like they have to
it's
talk
like their
to,
offices.
Yeah, and they have HR.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Within a
It's
family.
a family.
Yeah. What did they call it? They called it the institution, or not the institution. They had a different name for it, like the firm and
yeah.
something else too, I think. Interesting. Or just, the family
The
could be nice.
The family be like, hey, yo, mom, can we talk, or grandma? But yeah, I think it's just interesting. And I know that Meghan, of course, there's so much talk, especially in the Netflix series, and reasonably so. Like, she did go through, like, racism in those, like, in the British press. Like, it was intense. And I think that's completely valid to speak about, being a POC myself. I understand. But I also think, like, again, there's different ways to have that conversation without having necessarily that big money involved.
Yeah. I mean, the British press is an animal in itself, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the one thing that did bug me, though, you watched the documentary series, is she kept calling him H. It was bugging me. Just use his name. It's not like a secret code anymore. We know who he is.
Yeah.
That's just my take.
That does bother me a little bit too.
It's too quirky for our,
so
like,
weird. Like, if that's what you guys want to call each other, cool. That's your thing. Can we not know that? I don't know.
Feels kind of forced a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
H.
forced.
What's up, M? Like, imagine.
T.
I go, hey, T. Oh, that's cute. I like T. Okay, never mind. But, yes.
I also think he does make a really valid point in saying that he doesn't want the same thing to happen to his family as what happened to his mother, just in that sense. I mean, I keep talking about the 60 Minutes interview, but it was very eye-opening, where he spoke about when Diana died, and he wanted to look at the police reports again. And so he was looking at it, and then him and his brother a few years later had decided, or they were thinking about having the investigation opened again to see how she died. So I think there's also maybe that idea of, was she killed by them on purpose?
My
Possibly?
mom would
I
be
don't
in
know.
Britain right there and then be like, yes.
We're going to need a whole nother show if I start talking about that.
Legit.
So I don't know. I mean, if they're happy and we're happy on our own, he's going to make a lot of money off this book.
Good for him. I'm probably
Good for Harry.
Yeah. You know what? I hope they put an illegal copy online so we don't have to pay, but we can read. Just
check Twitter.
Get that free trial.
Yep.
Yes. All right. So thank you, Allison, for
Yep, of course.
sharing the news. And now we're coming to a close. This is our first episode in the winter. And again, we're going to be doing this for the following 2 weeks leading up to the spring semester, which, by the way, Brooklyn College students, the spring semester is starting on January 25. So remember, and don't oversleep, please.
All right. We want to thank everyone for listening, and to John for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And some things that we plan on doing for the spring semester. We will be hopefully, most likely, definitely, probably in print in the spring. So you can catch us on the newsstands in front of most, if not all, of the buildings on campus. So you can read the physical paper. It'll be nice to pick up another paper again. It's been a while. When was the last time we printed? physical?
Spring 2022, and the last issue, and I will always remember this issue and the story.
Yes.
It was the Students for Justice in Palestine protest. Yes. And I'm very proud of that story. I stand by it.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. So yeah, and hopefully we'll be printing again. And, this is an important thing to note too. Many of our editors are graduating, and a lot of us are really hoping to leave this semester with a big bang, I guess. So we want to make sure that if you want things to be investigated, if you yourself want to do reporting, interview people, make sure to reach out to us. We're always available. We want to make sure that we are the eyes and ears of Brooklyn College, not in a nosy way, but in an informative way. So yeah, and we are looking always for writers, and now with the spring coming, a lot of us, as I mentioned, are graduating, and we're going to be looking for new editors, which are paid positions. I repeat, paid.
And you do not have to be a journalism or TREM or JAMS major to join us. Most of our editors and staff actually don't even major in journalism, but we really enjoy it. And it's like a passion for us to kind of write and report and do all those things. Despite all of the stress that John mentioned earlier, it is fun. And we would love to have you all on board if you're interested at all, like I said before. So please reach out to us on our social media or our email at thebcvanguard@gmail.com. And check us out on Instagram at thebcvanguard.
Yeah. And also, another shameless plug, we just want to give a shout out to Luis Flecha, who is our board op, who's making sure that we sound clear and loud enough for you all to hear us. And Luis is also part of the Get Back, which is a show that will be coming back in the spring. Is that right, Luis? Yes, I'm getting the nod. All right. But yeah. And again, if you want to report, if you want us to investigate stuff, please make sure to reach out to us. We are here to help Brooklyn College students, professors, faculty, to make sure that their stories are told, of course, with fact-checking and with the truth at the forefront. So, yeah. Thank you all for coming in and tuning in. And if you want to check out our first and second episode from the fall semester, they're available on WBCR's YouTube channel.
All right, and thanks once again for listening. Thanks, John. Thanks, Allison. Thanks, Luis. Thanks, Gabby.
Thanks, Michela.
Thanksgiving. I thought that would get a better reaction. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It was all right.
It was too quirky. All right. Everyone take care and stay warm.
See you next week.